I am doing a video review of an article titled "Doing the Impossible: Motivating Middle School Students." This article is written by two language teachers, Andrea Davis and Leslie Forbes. So the article starts off and it says that the whole foundation of this art it starts from the basis of this one quote and then goes from there. And that quote is basically, it is impossible to motivate middle school students. All you can do is tap into their motivation. So then it goes from there. Uh, it it's their first point. They're talking about this student named Luke, and he's the typical middle school student. He's not motivated, just kind of not typical middle school student, but the typical unmotivated middle school student. Uh, he nothing candy, no prizes or passes or nothing motivates him until they at the end of sixth grade they give an assignment where the sixth graders have to give a book suggestion to the upcoming sixth graders, and they have to write a paper, kind of a persuasive essay, and he dives in. I mean, he is more motivated than ever, does a great job, and that was their justification for their first point, which is learning to connect with others. That learning to connect with others, and as a teacher encouraging that connection with other students, that that taps into that motivation. After that, they go into a bunch of examples of Leslie's classroom. She's a sixth grade teacher, about her seating, the way she does seating, and whether it's a test and they're doing rows, or whether it's smaller circle groups to where they can have individual conversations, or a big classroom discussion. They've got a big circle where all the students can see each other, so it's really facilitating that discussion. They like I said, they really emphasize the the seating arrangement of the class, and then they finish it off with, which is really their second point, finding the energy to tap student motivation. They they finish that off with the environment of the classroom. So that's talking about respect and the way that you critique your fellow classmates. So they talked about having a lot of structure in that way, and procedures, and that if you set up those procedures and that classroom environment, then that will tap into that student motivation. That will really encourage them to step out, and kind of the idea of having that free thinking atmosphere to where the students can express their opinions, and whether it's dumb or whether everybody disagrees, it's not a bad thing. Um, and they also said just having a growth mindset where the teachers would go, and they are constantly reviewing every day. They're constantly going back and saying, this worked, this didn't work, I need to do this differently, I could do this again, things like that. So for me, I picked motivation, and I picked this article because that's something that I think I'm really going to struggle with. I think that's one of the biggest difficulties with education, is motivating your students, because that it just seems something that's hard to me. How do you motivate your students if they don't want to do it? Like I said, how do you motivate them? So I picked this topic, and um, I disagree with that foundational quote that they started with. I think that motivation does change. Now, I don't necessarily think that the students can choose to change it. I don't think that maybe as a teacher we can directly affect it, but I do think motivation changes, just kind of like intelligence does. I think it's not as static as they were saying in this article. Um, but I agree. I think having that atmosphere, having the right procedures, not to the point where you're constricting it, but to where you're protecting that classroom environment where you want to have that free thinking. Um, that's all I got.